Perfect. We are live. Anu, can we chant? Do we have Anu in the call? No. So we'll listen the recording and
Sadhana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
okay, welcome back. Today we are starting the new chapter, chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita. So we covered up to chapter 4. We covered quite a lot, because if you cannot just say that how much we covered based upon the number of chapters. The first few chapters are large, has a lot of verses. So this chapter is known as Sannyasa Yoga. And today we are going to see an introduction. Surprisingly, I got a lot of questions in the last 1 week. From the topic and outside the topic, we had an open question on Ramayana. We will try to address as much as possible and proceed. There were a lot of questions directly related to the topic also. So that was very interesting. So I would try to address as much as possible. So this chapter, again, considered as one of the most difficult chapter to understand in Bhagavad Gita. So, but with a systematic step-by-step study, this may not be that difficult. So with that, let's get started. The first chapter of the Gita was a problem statement in a context that happens in the context of a war, basically demonstrating the fundamental human problem. Because whatever skills you may have, you may find it difficult to face the life. You may find to face a situation in front of you. So how to deal with that situation? That is the context of the Gita. The second chapter of the Gita is a summary of the entire Gita. It mainly gives twofold approach. One is the strategic solution or the ultimate solution of the human suffering is know your true identity. But to know your true identity, a lifestyle is prescribed, which is known as yoga. So when you do this yoga lifestyle, it serves two purposes. One is it helps you to live an efficient and effective life in this world. At the very same time, the work you do will become a spiritual practice. And the second chapter gives these two paths very clearly. Chapter 3 to 17 is an elaboration of these topics. And chapter 18 is a recap. This is the structure of the Gita. So chapter 3, as we said, it's an elaboration of the topics covered in chapter 2. So chapter 3 covered the topic Karma Yoga in detail. What is Karma Yoga? What is the different aspects of the Karma Yoga? How can you convert a karma to Karma Yoga? What are all the benefits of Karma Yoga? All those topics were covered in chapter 3. When it came to chapter 4, the difference between Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga is clearly elaborated, because Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are not competing paths, but the Karma Yoga has a purpose to gain a pure mind, and Upasana Yoga can be considered as part of the Karma Yoga in the larger scheme of things. So the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga combination is used for gaining a pure mind and a stable mind. And the Jnana Yoga is for gaining a, removing the mental ignorance. And these two yogas are not optional. Whoever you are, you need to practice these two. In fact, a sadhaka or a seeker do not have a choice between these approaches. The question I got was, is this the view of Advaita Vedanta? Yes, this is the view of traditional Advaita Vedanta taught by Shankaracharya. So in fact, Shankaracharya spent a lot of time highlighting these two paths. So what are all the alternate paths? I'm not confusing you or complicating you, but this view is purely Advaita Vedanta view. That doesn't mean that this view is supported by the Dvaita or the Vishishta Dvaita. No. If you go and ask Madhavacharya or his followers, they may not agree with this approach. If you go and ask Ramanujacharya and his followers, they also may not agree with this approach. This approach, whereas the two-step approach to moksha is clearly laid out by Advaita Vedanta. So I just wanted to make that very clear. So this is, with this, we can proceed. So now, in the third chapter of the Gita was started by a question from Arjuna. If you remember, what was the question? Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani khore mam niyojayati Keshava. This was the question.
Clear mind. But it's clear.
Okay. That's good. So the third chapter, Arjuna was confused. How he got confused? In the second chapter, Krishna said that you have to follow Karma Yoga, you have to follow Upasana Yoga, but at the end of the second chapter, Krishna said, Jnana Yoga is the highest. So the question on the third chapter was, if Jnana Yoga is the highest, why are you asking me to go and do Karma Yoga? So if this is known as Sadhana Dvayam. Okay, this is a technical term. So just try to understand this thing. Sadhana Dvayam. There are two types of sadhana in the spiritual path. The first set of sadhana is the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga combination, which is to gain a pure mind and a stable mind. And second set of sadhana is Jnana Yoga. So this is Sadhana Dvayam. And this Sadhana Dvayam, there is no choice. Suppose I want to go to London. And if I ask you, how do I go to London? I'm sitting in North Brunswick. You may tell me to take a cab and go to Newark Airport. And then take a flight and go to London. Suppose you ask me, why should I do both? Why should I take the flight alone to go to London? It's exactly like that. Can I avoid the cab? Absolutely not. Can I avoid the flight? Absolutely not. I need to do both. So like that, can I avoid the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga? No. Can I avoid the Jnana Yoga? No. You need both. So you don't have Again, underline this. Per the vision of Advaita Vedanta, and I can vouch you, this is the most logical vision. Per the vision of Advaita Vedanta, there is no choice between Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga versus Jnana Yoga. You cannot say that philosophically oriented people go and do the Jnana Yoga. Action-oriented people go and do the Karma Yoga. It is not like that. Everybody will have to do Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Then only you will gain the moksha. Why? Because what is the problem? The problem is the self-ignorance. And if ignorance is the problem, the only solution is the knowledge. And that knowledge can come only through the Jnana Yoga. But am I ready, or am I eligible, or am I qualified to take the Jnana Yoga? Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga is going to give me that qualification or eligibility to take that Jnana Yoga. So these sadhana dvayam, they are not choices. Every seeker has to follow that, and nobody has a choice. Okay, I will do Jnana Yoga, you will do Karma Yoga. We both will reach at the same time, same place, and say hello. No, it will not happen. This is a lot of misunderstanding in the modern world. A lot of commentators confuses people. These are not parallel paths. The ultimate destination is only through knowledge. Now, why people get confused? When you take a commentary of the Gita, you have no idea which school the commentator is following. If the commentator is following a Vishishtadvaita school or a Dvaita school, you will get confused. And that is why I was telling you, if you start with a school, if you start with Advaita Vedanta, stick to Advaita Vedanta till you cover the entire Gita. And then you can go back and study the Gita. It makes a lot of sense. I'll tell you the mistake I made when I started. I took around 6 or 7 copies of the Gita, and I tried to read everything in parallel. And sometimes what happens, you feel that exactly contradiction. And this was my challenge. And that is why I was telling, like, you need to have a teacher to explain you, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So this is very important. So what I try to communicate as an introduction to this yoga, this chapter, Sannyasa Yoga, you wanted to understand the difference between the sadhanas, sadhana dvayam. The first set of sadhana is the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga combination. And what is the goal of that Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga combination? It is to gain Chitta Shuddhi and the Chitta Sthiti. And then the Jnana Yoga is, the goal is self-knowledge. So Chitta Shuddhi and Chitta Sthiti is a mandatory requirement for the Jnana Yoga to work. So this is clear, right? There is no choice in the sadhanas. Now, where you have choice? There is one place you have choice, and there is one place you do not have choice. Where you do not have choice is between the sadhana. And where you have choice is the lifestyle you prefer. The lifestyle you prefer to pursue the spiritual path, you do have a choice. And in Sanskrit, this lifestyle is known as Nishta. So lifestyle is known as Nishta. The spiritual practices are known as, the steps are known as sadhana. So sadhana, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, you do not have a choice. Everybody will have to take. But in the Nishta, you have a choice. What are all those Nishtas? One is the Nishta of a Sannyasi. And the second Nishta is Nishta of a worldly person, householder. So you can approach the spiritual path either as a sannyasi or as a householder. That part you have a choice. Both of them, whether you are a sannyasi or whether you are a householder, you need to follow these two steps. No choice. But you can follow those two steps either by adopting the lifestyle of a sannyasi, living all the mundane worldly activities, and going back to Himalayas and wearing an orange robe, you're exclusively studying the scripture. But still, that sannyasi also has to follow this karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga compilation. What would be his karma yoga? His study, the social services he does, all those, his puja, all those things will be his karmas. But he cannot miss the karma yoga. And he cannot miss the upasana yoga. He cannot miss the jnana yoga. And I'm not a sannyasi. I'm a householder. I work in a corporate world. I do a lot of worldly activities. But as long as I do this karma yoga, upasana yoga, and follow the jnana yoga, yeah, that is also acceptable. So the choice is given in the nishta, and there is no choice in the sadhana. Sadhana is karma yoga, jnana yoga. Nishta is householder and a sannyasi. And why the confusion happens is this nishta is also known as sankhya and yoga. So this is where the people get confused. So when you use nishta sankhya, sankhya nishta means it is the path of a sannyasi. And if you take the yoga nishta, means it is the path of a householder. So between sankhya and yoga, between the life of a householder, between the life of a sannyasi, you have a choice. But the sadhanas you have to follow, which is the karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga, no choice. If you don't know this idea, this chapter can be nightmare and it would be confusing. Let me pause here. Anybody has any questions? Let's clear that and go.
So, Sankhya Nishtha is a sannyasi, and
Yoga Nishtha is the life of a householder.
Okay. So different terms for the same.
Yeah. So Sanskrit, the beauty of the Sanskrit is its richness and its fantastic stuff. The difficulty of the Sanskrit is context sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say context sensitive, depending upon the context, the meaning will change. To illustrate that, the word sannyasi has 5 different meanings. Depending upon the context, it is going to change. So let me explain those 5 meanings to you so that whenever this word sannyasi comes in this chapter, let us try to understand. Excuse me. What exactly it is going to refer. What is the literal meaning of the word sannyasa? Giving up, that's all. Sannyasi means the person who has given up. Depending upon what exactly he is giving up, it can have different meaning. Correct? So I can say that I'm giving up ice cream tomorrow. You can say that you are an ice cream sannyasi. So your renunciation is pretty much limited to ice cream. So you need to understand the problem we have is the word sannyasi already has a stamped meaning in our mind. What is that? Somebody with the orange robe, with a kamandalu and all. No, that's only one of the meaning. So let's try to understand the whole length and the breadth of this word sannyasi and the sannyasa, and then go to the chapter. Then the chapter will become more clear and easy to follow. Why you get confused in this chapter is you're trying to mix the context sensitive words. Right? So this is the problem. So let's try to understand the different possible meanings of the sannyasi, the word used sannyasi in the Bhagavad Gita. When you look at the Bhagavad Gita the word sannyasi can mean 5 different things. Outside of the Bhagavad Gita, you can create any number of meaning. Right? If you give up something, you become a sannyasi with respect to that. As I said, the literal meaning of the word sannyasi means the one who has renounced something, the one who has given up something. That's all it means, sannyasi. So in Gita, we have 5 different types of sannyasi. The first sannyasi is, have you seen people in New York or somewhere, they don't want to do any work. Lazy fellow. What is that American expression we use for that? Couch potatoes. Given a choice, he will not do anything. So what does that mean? What is that he has given up? His own duties. If it is a student, he don't study, he don't do the homework, he will lie down on the couch and watch the phone full 24/7. That person is also a sannyasi. What exactly he has given? Sannyasi, what? His own duties. So that is type 1. Type 1 sannyasi is the people who has given up their duties. Not out of the spiritual interest or anything, not because of knowledge, not to pursue any higher goals, nothing. He has given up because of laziness. That is type 1. Type 2 is known as Vividisha sannyasi. Vividisha sannyasi means a person is not interested in the worldly activities. His mental makeup is such that he is not interested in parties, he's not interested in movies, he's not interested in gadgets, he's not interested in social gathering. His interest is only in what? Studying the scriptures, understanding this. There are some people. Such people, even if you put them into somewhere, they will run away. Shankaracharya was a classic example. Narayana Guru was a classic example. Vivekananda was a classic example. Those people, they might be academically brilliant, but their mental makeup is such that Swami Tapovan is another beautiful example. Even if you put him anywhere else, this person is only interested in spiritual things. I was reading the book of Guru Nanak. You could see his father gave him a lot of money to go and do some business. He took the money and went to the market. Suddenly he saw a lot of sadhus sitting there. He brought food and gave to them and come back. So there are some people who are not at all interested in the worldly activities. Now, why is that? It is your karma. You may not like cricket, I will like cricket. But you may like golf, I may not like golf. You may like music, I may not like music. You may like traveling, I may not like traveling. Even if you like traveling, I may like to go to the natural places. You may like to go to big cities and pubs. It's all different mental makeups of the individual. If you take a scientifically oriented minded person to some work which is completely extrovert work, is he going to shine? Absolutely not. So if a person's mind is naturally programmed for the spiritual practice, such people will give up their worldly life and take up sannyasa. But mind you, when they took the sannyasa, are they enlightened? No. He still have to gain chitta shuddhi. He still have to gain the chitta sthiti. He still have to gain the knowledge. We know that he is not enlightened, but he has changed his lifestyle from the lifestyle of a worldly person to the lifestyle of a sannyasi, and that sannyasi is known as Vividisha sannyasi. So that person, what he renounced, again, sannyasi means he who renounced something. What exactly he has renounced? He has renounced his worldly life. That is why he is a sannyasi. And such sannyasis are that they are the one who comes in orange robe. So somebody was asking me last chapter, why all sannyasis are enlightened? No, doesn't mean a sannyasi is an enlightened person. A sannyasi means only one thing. He has given up the worldly life and he is pursuing a dedicated life to study the scriptures and or follow the spiritual practice. So the first one is a couch potato. He has given up all his duties. The second one is a sannyasi, lifestyle sannyasi. He has given up only the worldly life. That's it. And what is the third type of sannyasi according to the Gita? If you are a karma yogi, right? A karma yogi's first step is what? When you get the results of the action, you take it as a prasada of the God. For taking any result as the prasada of the God, you have to give up something. Anxiety for the future, the fruits of action. So some people, they will give up the anxieties for the few fruits of action, and they are also can be called as sannyasi. And they are really karma yogis. I'm just explaining how complicated it is, because the word can refer to any one of this. So a couch potato. Second one is a person who has taken up sannyasa formally. The third one is a karma yogi who has given up the anxiety for the fruits of the action. And the fourth one is also a karma yogi. A karma yogi, when he gets into the advanced stage, he will be giving up something. He will be giving the sense of doership by Ishwararpana Buddhi. So if he is giving up or renouncing, he has the sense of doership, but he is renouncing that sense of doership in front of the God. For example, how can I give up the sense of doership or that ego? Means when I say sense of doership means it is not a realized person. The ego that I am performing this action. If I have the ego, right? I'm doing this class. I know the Gita. I communicate this to you well. If I have that ego, that's a problem. How can I give up that ego? I will realize that this knowledge comes to me from great masters. There are so much of grace comes to me from Ishvara for me to execute this properly. When I realize that, my ego I will give up. So when I give up that ego, I become a kind of sannyasi. So 4 types of sannyasi. The last type of sannyasi is the highest type of sannyasi, and that sannyasi is known as Vidvat sannyasi. Vidvat sannyasi means a sannyasi, a person who has recognized the true nature of himself. For example, when I get enlightenment or when I get moksha, I realize that the actions are performed by the body and the mind, and I am different from that body and mind. So he has given up all the karmas through the knowledge. This was the theme of the 4th chapter, if you remember. So karmanya karmaya pashyet, right? So that person, a person who has known his truth, know that the real actor is not him, but the body and the mind. So who has given up that identity with the body and the mind, and through the knowledge, that is why it is known as Vidvat sannyasi. Vid means knowledge. The one who has knowledge, he has given up these things. Now, out of these 5 categories, how many of them have orange robe? Only one. Only Vividisha Sannyasi has orange robe. And out of these 5, how many of them are desirable type of sannyasi? And how many of them are undesirable state of sannyasi? Definitely the couch potato is not a desired sannyasi. So that is a forbidden type of sannyasi. Every other 4 is certainly good, depending upon your model. So the first one is a couch potato. What exactly he has renounced? His duties. Second one is a sannyasi by taking a formal sannyasa. What exactly he has given up? His worldly life. The third is the beginning stage of a karma yogi. What exactly he has given up? The anxiety for the results of the action. Fourth one is the advanced karma yogi. What exactly he has given up? The sense of ego. I am doing it. I am doing it. So that is given up. And the last one is the one who has gained the highest knowledge, Vidyut Sannyasi. So these are the 5 types of sannyasi. And whenever we see the word sannyasa, we need to have a clear understanding which context we are referring to. Now, in the 3rd chapter, Arjuna's question was nothing related to the sannyasa. His question was, is there a choice between sadhana? What are all the different sadhana? Karma yoga versus jnana yoga. Krishna said, no. In the 4th chapter, Krishna introduced these 2 terms, karma and sannyasa. So Arjuna again get confused. Arjuna understood that there is no choice between the life of the karma yogi. Karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga, there is no choice. But he hoped. There is a choice between sannyasi and householder. And then he asked a question, which is better? Is the lifestyle of a sannyasi is better for me? Or is the lifestyle of a householder is better for me? So, a lot of people tell that the question on the 3rd chapter and the 5th chapter is exactly the same. Please not. The question on the 3rd chapter is related to sadhana, and the question on the 5th chapter is related to nishtha. These are all where we need the clarity. People just talk about the Gita without that clarity, and that is how confuses people. So the 3rd chapter, the question is with respect to sadhana, and the 5th chapter, the question is related to nishtha. It's not that Arjuna didn't understood what Krishna taught in the 3rd chapter. I read a commentary last week saying that, oh, Arjuna didn't understood the question. The answer given in the 3rd chapter. Please note that it was not Arjuna who didn't understood, but the commentator didn't understood. That's the problem. Arjuna's question is different. The question in the 3rd chapter is different from the question in the 5th chapter. Now you know, right? One is related to sadhana, the other one is related to nishtha. And you also have to know the answer. There is no choice between the sadhana, and there is a choice between the nishtha. So what does that mean? If I take the life of a householder, I have to do karma yoga, upasana yoga, jnana yoga. And if I take the life of a sannyasi, still I have to do the karma yoga, upasana yoga, the jnana yoga. What exactly is the karma for a sannyasi would be different from the karma of a householder. For example, what is my karma? I have to go to work every day morning. I have to earn. I have to pay the mortgage. I have to support the family. All that is my karma. Is that karma is there for a sannyasi? Absolutely not. He can only teach. He can study. He can do the charity work. He can do all the duties prescribed for a sannyasi. Whereas I need to do the duties prescribed for a householder. But important thing is that, am I doing my duty as a karma yoga? Then it is going to benefit me, chitta shuddhi. If the sannyasi is not doing his karma, which is the teachings of the scriptures, doing the charity, without the spirit of karma yoga, he will not progress. He will always stay as a vividisha sannyasi, and he won't get into a vidvat sannyasi. So a householder, he can start as a karma yogi, and the karma yogi initially means he may give up the anxiety for the future fruit of action. So he can be called as a karma phala sannyasi. Then he will evolve into a like kartrutva sannyasi, the sense of doership, the ego will be given up, and finally he will evolve into a vidvat sannyasi. So once he gets into a vidvat sannyasi, what does that mean? Is he running away from the life? No, Janaka is the classic example. Janaka continued to be a ruler. So he may not be wearing an orange robe. You may not recognize him as a sannyasi. You may not recognize him as any spiritual person, but he is the highest spiritual person. So that is the path. So he will start as a karmi. From that karmi, he will go to a karma yogi. From a karma yogi, he will go to a sannyasi. So means how does that happen? Like this is the step. Whereas in the case of a sannyasi lifestyle, he will start as a vividisha sannyasi, and finally he will end up into a vidvat sannyasi. A karma yogi or a yogi, the person, the householder also goes to that path, and finally he end up into a vidvat sannyasi. A vidvat sannyasi need not have orange robe. If a vividisha sannyasi becomes a vidvat sannyasi, he may have an orange robe. But orange robe is not a mandatory thing for a vidvat sannyasi, whereas the orange robe is a mandatory thing for a vividisha sannyasi. Have I confused you with a lot of technical terms? But this is very important.
What is a couch potato called? The first one?
Oh, he can call as what you call. You can call him as couch potato is called as karma sannyasi. He will just give up all his karmas.
Where does Bogi fit into this, Rajesh?
Yeah, Bogi will be naturally this couch potato could be
Couch potato.
Yeah, absolutely. But understand that Sanskrit is complicated. This context sensitivity can create a lot of problem. And now, if Bhagavan is intending to use the couch potato and you take the meaning of a orange-robed sannyasi, imagine what would you conclude? And if he is talking about a vidvat sannyasi and you take him as a vividisha sannyasi, you lose the meaning. So, very important for this chapter, you understand this concept. And if you understand this much fundamentals, this chapter will be very, very simple.
Rajesh, can you please say the Vidyut Sannyasi? What is the...
Okay.
What has he
So,
announced? Sorry.
let me summarize this one more time, right? So just think through the whole thing once again. So the first sannyasi is a context sensitive word. Sannyasi literally means the one who gives up something. Depending upon what he gives up, he can be called as different sannyasis, right? So that is the point. What exactly is the qualifier? What exactly he has renounced is going to determine what type of sannyasi he is. So some people, what they do, they will give up their obligatory duties. They just give up their obligatory duties. So that is the karma sannyasi, the mere karma sannyasi, or the couch potato. That is not a good thing, because that is what Krishna was criticizing in the 3rd chapter, right? So remember, karmendriyani samyamya yayaste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyacharasa uchyati. Krishna said, such person is a hypocrite. Such person is a good for nothing fellow. He said, right? Niyatam kuru karmastvam karma grahyo kya karmanaha. You cannot even maintain your body. So such laziness is not what Gita is advising. So number one. Number two is what? A person is not a worldly person. He is pretty much interested in the scriptural studies and pursuing the study of the scriptures, reading about the scriptures, etc. Such a person decides that, okay, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to be in the world. I'm not going to do the worldly activities. So he approaches a guru, and the guru is going to give him a diksha he renounces the world and take up the lifestyle of a sannyasi. And that sannyasi is known as Vividisha sannyasi. Vividisha sannyasi. And Vividisha sannyasi is the sannyasi you see all the time. The person with the orange robe, Hindu monk, is the Vividisha sannyasi. Third category is a person, when he progresses in the karma yoga, what happens? He will be able to renounce what? The fruits of the anxiety for the fruits of action. Not the fruits of action, but the anxiety for the fruits of action. So such person is the third category. Karma bhala sannyasi. And the fourth one is the person who has given up the sense of doership. I did this, the ego, the one who can renounce the ego. That is the fourth category. These two are karma yogis. When you practice karma yoga, you get these steps. And finally, the person who has realized the truth has renounced his identity with the body and the mind, and he has identified with the Atma. And when he is identified with the Atma, he knows that I'm not the body and the mind. The action is still there. He has not stopped the action, but he knows that the body and the mind are acting. So such a person is known as Jnana Karma Sannyasi. He renounced the karma. How? Through knowledge, not physically renouncing the karma by the couch potato. So that there is a difference between a karma sannyasi and a jnana karma sannyasi. So the last chapter was jnana karma sannyasi. So Amisha, the two things is, one is Vividisha sannyasi is still a seeker, whereas Vidyut sannyasi is a self-realized master.
Got it. Thank you.
There is one more category, not to add complication, but just for the sake of completeness. It is known as Apat Sannyasi. Apat Sannyasi means, some people in our tradition, there was a belief, if you die as a sannyasi, you get moksha, which is wrong completely, right? So what they do is, when they are about to die or when they face a difficult situation in the life, they just run away from the worldly life and get into sannyasa. And that is known as apat sannyasa, which is again not a good thing. Swami Chinmayananda used to give beautiful stories on these people. So Swami Chinmayananda used to say, what? Person had a tragedy. He gave, let's say that happened in Kerala. From Kerala, he will disappear and he will appear in the Rishikesh. After 10 years, his child from Kerala will go to Rishikesh and look for this fellow, and he will see another family there. So this is what is going to happen to Apat Sannyasis. You cannot go and take this Vividisha Sannyasa not as giving up something. So Swami Tapovan brilliantly explains this. He said, for me, sannyasa, I didn't give up anything. I didn't give up anything. I just pursuing some goals of my life. For that, I may have to move to a different direction. He explains it so brilliantly that if I'm standing on one side of the stage, and if I want to move to the other side of the stage, don't I need to leave the first place? If I want to get the healthy body, and if I eat all these unhealthy junk food, is that going to happen? It's pursuing a higher goal. That is what is the sannyasa, Vividisha sannyasa. And sometimes what is going to happen? These frauds for cheating, etc., they get into sannyasa. Those things are not discussed in the Gita. So the 5 meaning I gave you is based upon the word sannyasa used in the Gita in 5 contexts. So we need to make sure that we understand the context. Okay. So with that, let's quickly get in. Okay. So this chapter has 3 topics. That's all. This chapter is a small chapter. Only 28 verses has this chapter. So the first topic, verse 1 to 7, is going to talk about the Nishta Dvayam. Nishta Dvayam means the 2 different Nishta. Hopefully, you know what is the Nishta. Remember, we talked about that. Nishta means the lifestyle. How many Nishta? What is the lifestyle? One is the lifestyle of a sannyasi, Vividisha sannyasi, or when I use the word sannyasi, mind you, you need to connect with one of those 5. Any point of time, whenever we talk about the word sannyasi, you need to connect which sannyasi out of that 5. So here, Vividisha sannyasi, the other one is a householder. So we need to understand those 2. And then Yoga Dvayam or Sadhana Dvayam. Sadhana is also known as yoga. So Yoga Dvayam or 2 spiritual practice. So in the Nishta Dvayam, I do have choice. Whereas Yoga Dvayam, I do not have a choice. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Upasana Yoga usually clubbed with Karma Yoga. That's why it's not explicitly stated. So that is why Yoga Dvayam. And then Sadhana Phalam or the Yoga Phalam, the benefit of these spiritual practices. That's all given in this chapter. So this chapter is very specifically intended to address the confusion of whatever we discussed. I already talked about that whole idea. So this should not be a lot of confusing thing for you when you go to the actual verses. Now, if you have this much background, this chapter will be very simple. So from next week onwards, we can go through the verses. I know if you don't mind, if you can chant the verses, that would be great. Let me make you the spotlight also, and you can chant.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Shashtodhyayah Atma Samyama Yogaha Shri Bhagavan Vacha Anashritah Karma Phalam.
No, I know actually you are chanting chapter 6.
Sorry. So sorry. Sorry. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Panchamodhyayah Karma Sannyasa Yogaha Arjuna Uvacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam Cha Shamsasi Yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasah Karma Yogascha Nishreyasakara ubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate Nyeyassa nitya sannyasi yonatveshti na kankshati nidvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate sankhya yogau pruthak balaha pravadanti na panditaha ekamapyasthitas samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. Ekamapyasthitas samyak ubhayor vindate phalam. यत्साङ्ख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानं तद्योगैरपि गम्यते एकं साङ्ख्यं च योगं च यः पश्यति स पश्यति संन्यासस्तु महाबाहो दुःखमाप्तुमयोगतः योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्म न चिरेणाधिगच्छति योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन् ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये युक्तः कर्म फलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानं येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवत् ज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम् तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पंडिताः समदर्शिनः इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गः येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढः ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत्सुखं स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखमक्षयमश्नुते ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगाः दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः योऽन्तः सुखोऽन्तरारामः तथान्तर्ज्योतिरेव यः स योगी ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मभूतोऽधिगच्छति लभन्ते ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ऋषयः क्षीणकल्मषाः छिन्नद्वैतायतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यतचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरो स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनो बुद्धिः मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः भोक्तारं यज्ञतपसां सर्वलोकमहेश्वरं सुहृदं सर्वभूतानां ज्ञात्वा मां शान्तिमृच्छति। ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे कर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम पंचमोऽध्यायः।
Thank you, Anu. That's great. So next week we will continue, but let me see if you have any questions on today, what we covered today, but otherwise we can go back and give an update on some of the questions we discussed last week.
Rajesh, what was that fourth sannyasi called?
It is called Kartrutva Sannyasi. So that is the fourth.
Okay.
You are renouncing the sense of
The
I am
ego.
doing it.
Yeah. The renouncing the ego, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the 5 categories of sannyasi.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Any questions? Okay, so there were a few questions related to Rama and Uttara Ramayana. Still, I'm researching on that. There is some confusions. First of all, couple of things I just wanted to say. The Uttara Ramayana has only a very, very minor reference. So you may have to go back to Padma Purana to get the details. So I'm searching for that. So I don't have that answer yet, but I'll come back. A couple of things I found is Uttara Ramayana, the authenticity of the Uttara Ramayana is highly questioned. So that's point number 1. Second thing is we don't have enough data to call out from the Uttara Ramayana. So it is referring back to, especially that particular incident, we are going to Padma Purana. So I will collect it and give an update. But logically speaking, it cannot happen because the question was, if Rama killed somebody because he was born as a Shudra, highlight the word, born as a Shudra, that doesn't stand at all. If that was the case, who would have been killed first? Shabari. Shabari was 100%, she was a Shudra, and Rama particularly calls out Shabari as one of the most ideal devotee of the world. So if Rama is opposed to having a Shudra doing penance, because Shabari was doing penance for years and Rama blessed her. And even means those who are from south, you know that the whole Shabarimala is the place where Shabari did the meditation. But let me chase the story of this Shampuka, and come back to you. But it goes from Uttara Ramayana to Padma Purana. Then, okay, how do you shift your identity between Jiva to Atma? That is the whole Vedanta. So that is the whole essence of the Vedanta. So simple sentences, 3 sentences I was asked to say. So how do you do that? The problem is you have a mistaken self-identity. You do not see yourself properly. That is the whole idea. Why do you not see properly? 3 problems they say. One is malam. Malam means impurities of the mind. Second thing is vikshiptam, vikshepam, the turbulence of the mind. And the third one is avaranam, which is the ignorance of the mind. These are the 3 things, factors that creating a wrong self-identity. That is the idea. So one is malam, which is giving the impurities of the mind. Second one is vikshepam, which gives a turbulence of the mind. And the third one is avaranam, which gives ignorance of the mind. So imagine that you are looking for I'm literally copying Swami Vivekananda's example. He tells, imagine that a jewel is lying in a pond. How do you find that jewel in the pond? Somebody has to tell you that there is a jewel lying under the pond. Then when you go to the pond, imagine that the pond is muddy. Even if you look into the bottom, you won't see the jewel. Then, even if it is clean, if the water is shaky or turbulent, you won't see the bottom. So first, you need to clean the water, and then you need to arrest the turbulence of the water, and then follow the instruction given by the informed person and look in that direction. You yourself will see the jewel. So like that, you have to follow karma yoga to clean your mind, to remove the impurities. Our scriptures say that we have 6 types of impurities. One is kama, krodha, moha, lobha, mada, and matsarya. Those 6 impurities, 6-fold shatvairi, we call it as. That needs to be removed. And then upasana yoga we need to follow, which is kind of will create the steadiness of the mind or remove the turbulence of the mind. So karma yoga will do the malanivritti, upasana yoga will do the chitta sthiti or vikshepa nivritti, and finally knowledge, jnana yoga, is going to give you the avarana nivritti. And how do you pursue the knowledge? Through 3 means: shravana, manana, nididhyasana. Shravana means study the scriptures under a master for a sufficient period of time. That is number 1. And then mananam means do contemplation and critical analysis and remove all the doubts. And nididhyasanam is a kind of contemplation which is to remove the habitual attachment to the body. So this is how one shift his identity from Jiva to Atma. This is the entire Vedanta, what we just said in 5 sentences. This is the whole Vedanta.
One question, Rajesh. I understood like malam is the impurity of the mind, that we have to take out those 6 things like kama, krodha and all that. So vikshepa, as an example, I understood the turbulence of the water. If the water is not still, we would not be able to see what is under the water, the jewel under the water.
If your mind is agitated, can you think clearly?
So, my question is, if the malam is out of the mind, how can the mind be still turbulent? Is it when all these kama, krodha, moha, lobha are all
it's the habit, right? So what is going to happen is, if the of 100% malam is cleared, naturally the turbulence will come down by nature, right? Correct. So these 2 practices, it's like you don't say that this is compartment A follow the compartment B, compartment C. No,
Oh, okay.
you have to follow the Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga in parallel. Without Upasana Yoga, you cannot remove the karma. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita, this is broadly put as Karma Yoga. So meditation has to be, one is the Antaranga Sadhana, the other one is Bahiranga Sadhana. One is with the karma, the other one is like with the meditation. So,
Okay.
yeah. So it's not exactly sequential, but somewhat a little bit parallel. But of course, there will be some overlap, because even if the mala is cleared, because of some mental programming, still the mind can go to this agitated state. It's not, malam is one of the things that creates that turbulence, but even a pure person, right? You might be very much, you are a swatik person, you are a pure person, but you cannot stand what is happening in the world. Imagine that you're a nice person, you don't have any bad value. Imagine, theoretically, I'm just assuming, right? One person, Mr. X, he is a very good person. He goes and support Y a lot. And imagine, after receiving all the support that benefited Y a lot, and Y will come back and say that you did for selfish interest.
No, I didn't get it. So what happened?
I'm making a next story, right? So Ram helped Shyam.
Okay.
Ram went ahead and taught Shyam, helped him to find a job, gave his house to stay when he came here. I'm just making it up. And finally, Shyam got all benefited, and he is doing very well. And in a party, Shyam, let's say that Shyam goes and say that, okay, Ram did something to me, but he had a hidden intention. In fact, there was nothing. Do you think that it is going to hurt Ram? Is that going to create, he's a good person. He will be sad.
Ideally, it should not, right?
Theoretically, it should not. But even if he don't have kama, krotha, moha, lopa, mada, malcharya, still it will pain him. So
the pain doesn't fall under these 6 categories, right?
No, it's not kama. He didn't have any kama here.
He
didn't have any moha. Moha is a little bit there, delusion is a little bit there, but still mada, malcharya. So even good people, they will suffer. They will have suffering unless they are practicing karma yoga to that extent. That doesn't mean that, let's say that there is no stage that you are completely purified mind, then definitely, yeah, even if the sadness comes, it will be under the control. But there is an overlap phase where you need to do that. So to answer your question, both needs to be practiced at the same time.
So I think
without controlling the thought pattern, you cannot do karma yoga. So they are pretty much complementary.
Okay, so I think what you said, that answer I think is I like that one. What external and internal cleansing, like external
practices. Sadhana, the Antaranga Sadhana and Bahiranga Sadhana.
So there would be still a thought pattern even after all these 6 out.
Theoretically, right? No, practically. Think through that. What is emotional healing? You need to understand. You may want to go back to neurology then. Let's say that if you get a scar, emotional scar, it's like a physical scar. Sometimes you can heal it completely. Sometimes the scar will be there, but it is harmless. So sometimes what is going to happen is these wounds will heal. It may not have much ability to hurt me, but some of them will stay there. You are going above that.
So when we do the vikshepam, or the turbulence of the mind is gone out with the upasana yoga, so those emotional scars are kind of gone?
Not completely gone, but it is under control. That's all it means.
Oh, so they cannot be taken out?
No, the samskaras will be still there.
Oh. So
See, you will get freedom from the samskara only when you get the moksha.
Only ignorance is gone after the ignorance is gone?
Only when the ignorance is gone, it will be there, but it will be belong to the body. Reference, if you want, 2nd chapter, verse I believe 62 or something like that. Vishaya vinivrattande niraharasya dehinaha rasavarsham rasopyatsya param drishtva nivartade. Only when you see that ultimate truth, till then this will be lying there. In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we saw, right? Sabija Samadhi, Nirbija Samadhi. You may have them very well under control, but that doesn't mean that it is gone completely. Yep, latent state, exactly.
So if they are dormant, in dormant state, so there is a possibility of coming up anytime?
No, you have the ability to control it. You can control it. You see, first of all, the intensity will reduce, the frequency will reduce, and the recovery state will reduce. It will be kind of, because the practice of the yoga will give you that samatvam, right? So when these emotional changes or the mental disturbance is a problem, if it goes beyond a threshold, right? So if it is under that threshold, you're okay. You don't want the car to be going beyond certain speed because you don't have the control. So what you want is to control your mind in such a way that, control your thought patterns in such a way that you are in control. That is samatvam. Samatvam is not self-realization. It's only an intermediate stage.
So even after samatvam,
see, once you have samatvam, the samadhi, that's why the samadhi means you may want to listen to Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Samadhi is not just one state. It is a series. It's like a continuum. The beginning state is the focused state. From there you improve. From there you improve. Ultimately you reach that asamprajnada samadhi or nirvikalpa samadhi. So it's like a continuum. Okay, one more question, 1 more minute.
Thank you.
Okay, so this chapter, please keep that 5 definitions of sannyasam. Otherwise, you will get confused. One more point, please keep the difference between nishta and sadhana. You don't have a choice in the sadhana. Do have a choice in the. And when I say choice, it's not what I like to do. My mental makeup should be like that. See, if you say that I like to be a scientist, if my mental composition is not good for a scientist, I'm an extrovert person, I don't have patience to sit there and do something. If I go and take that profession, it will be disastrous. So if you're not fit for that sannyasa lifestyle, Shankaracharya writes in his commentary very detailed. If you're not fit, your mental makeup is not fit for a sannyasi, and if you go and take this life of a sannyasi, you are not only hurting yourself, you are hurting the society, and you are bringing a lot of bad name to the sannyasi. I don't have to explain. In the modern world, you hear about all these stories about the sannyasis. This is what happens. Okay, so Anu, if you don't mind, could you chant the Purnamada Purnamidam and we can stop there.
And also, so from this yoga nishtha path, we can still go to, we can still clear off the avarina and reach the moksha, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, actually, just since you asked, Arjuna asked which is better, the life of a worldly life and following the yoga dvayam, or the life of a sannyasi and following the. You will be surprised to hear Krishna's answer. Krishna said 95% of the people, which path is preferred?
Which path?
Worldly path.
Mm.
Second chapter, second line, second verse. Can you just read the second line of this chapter, if you don't mind? Second line, just
Oh,
second
you
verse.
mean second verse. Second verse.
Second verse, chapter 5.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasah Karma Yogascha Nishreyasakarahu Bhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate.
Which is better? Path of karma yoga. Path of yoga is better than the path of sannyasa. First line he says both sannyasa and yoga. Yoga here means the life of a householder. Both leads to the same result, which is the nishrayasaha. And if you ask me which is good for most of the people, life of a householder is better.
Karma Yoga.
This is the revolutionary teaching again in the Bhagavad Gita. So I'll talk about that later in the next class. We can have a good analysis, different traditions of the world. For example, Buddhism, Jainism, they overemphasize on sannyasa, whereas some other religion like Islam or Sikhism, they completely overemphasize on the worldly life. So you need to have a balance.
So they also have these two lifestyles.
Yes, of course. Everybody has that, right? So I'll do a quick comparison. We will talk about that in the next class. Okay, you can chant the Purnamada.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.